In this chapter, the tension escalates as Professor Sandy openly mocks Professor Morgue, her gaze downcast as she questions his ability to protect anyone. With a defiant flick of her tongue, she taunts him, claiming she can simply erase everything he holds dear. Meanwhile, amidst the chaos, a deranged monster approaches a crying girl, whose mother lies crushed beneath a massive stone. The creature, speaking in a human-like tone, asks how the girl is still alive and what she plans to do now, declaring that his queen has ordered the elimination of all who are weak. Trembling with fear, the little girl weeps as the monster prepares to strike. But before he can take another step, a sword pierces through his chest, blood spraying outward. It is Tutor who pulls the spear free, his eyes drained of color as the grim reality sets in. He has just taken a life. His companions rush toward him, calling his name as he pants heavily, beginning to fall into despair. Bianca grabs his shirt and shouts at him to get a grip, insisting that if it had not been for him, someone else would have died. Just as Tutor tries to argue, Sancho and Piggy interrupt, warning that more of Professor Sandy's men are closing in on them. The little girl continues to cry out for help, and Bianca kneels down, patting her head gently. She reassures the child that her group is incredibly strong and that they will save both her and her mother, no matter what. With that, the inhuman soldiers lunge at Piggy, who grips his sword with both hands, fear etched across his face. But just as they draw near, the ground shimmers with a purple glow, and a mana circle appears. Stone spikes erupt from the earth, impaling the attackers instantly. A confident figure strides forward, dismissing Professor Sandy's men as weak, before commanding Sayre to absorb all the souls and place them into the tree of departed souls. The demon Sayre raises her staff and begins gathering the spirits, but Camus turns to her companion and scolds her for only absorbing 4 souls when 5 people died, accusing her of keeping one for herself. Sayre denies this, but Camus warns that if she does not cooperate properly, she will kill her. Tutor and the others watch the exchange in bewilderment. Piggy steps forward to thank the stranger for saving them, and Camus finally introduces herself, revealing that she is a first-year transfer student from the Fire Corps. Bianca and the group are left speechless, having not anticipated a transfer student so late in the term. Camus points to her cousin, introducing her as Rose Morgue, also a first-year transferee. The group huddles together, questioning whether they can be trusted, given that they did save their lives. Camus snaps her fingers to regain their attention and asks if they know a certain individual and where he might be. Tutor, confused, asks who she is referring to. Camus replies that she has been searching for him all this time, Vikir. The scene then shifts to the entrance tunnel, where Vikir has already dispatched Professor Sandy's forces. As one of the men loses consciousness, he weakly calls out for his queen. Vikir slowly turns his gaze toward Professor Morgue and the other teachers, who are struggling to hold off Professor Sandy. She taunts Morgue, asking why he does not simply give up, offering to consider their shared history if he joins her before things take a turn for the worse. But Professor Morgue has no intention of surrendering to her cause. Gritting his teeth in frustration, he demands that she just kill him. At his request, Professor Sandy laughs, amused by his death wish. Without hesitation, Sandy's men surge forward to attack Professor Morgue. One of them comes within inches of delivering the fatal blow, when suddenly, a crimson blur streaks in like a comet, plunging a hand deep into the man's sternum. Professor Morgue's eyes widen in shock at the unexpected arrival, while Professor Sandy's expression twists into one of excited anticipation. The Night Hound has arrived. The scene shifts back to Vikir, who points toward the entrance tunnel and urges Professor Morgue and the other teachers to flee, insisting that an escape route awaits them. Professor Morgue, taken aback, questions why Vikir is aiding them, given that he should ostensibly be aligned with Professor Sandy. Vikir responds with a sharp glare, coldly stating that if they do not remove themselves from his sight immediately, he will kill them all. The other teachers hesitate for a brief moment, some allowing themselves to believe he might actually be offering assistance, but they quickly remember that he is regarded as no different from Sandy, a criminal in his own right. As Professor Morgue turns to leave, he notices a shiny bracelet adorning the Night Hound's wrist and wonders why such a figure would be wearing it. Something feels amiss. He begins to suspect that the Night Hound might actually be a student. Once the teachers have safely retreated, Fakir and Professor Sandy finally face one another. Sandy is the first to break the silence, expressing her long-awaited excitement at finally meeting the infamous Night Hound. She licks her lips in admiration, confessing that she has been waiting for this moment. She asks if he has developed an interest in the old era, the Warring States period, where power reigned supreme and only the strongest survived. She claims to know everything, insisting that she can smell the same predatory scent on him that she carries herself, and she laughs with delight. Fakir, however, remains calm and dismissive, stating that he has no interest in joining her or entertaining her low-class delusions. His words strike her deeply, causing her heart to skip a beat as she struggles to comprehend that their goals do not align. Fakir continues, declaring that since she has committed such trashy acts, she will have to pay the price. He lunges forward, appearing behind her in an instant to launch his attack. Sandy finds herself frozen, his words having shattered something within her, leaving her wide open. Fakir's kick lands squarely against her sternum, the force of the blow cracking the very ground beneath her like a spiderweb, sending dust and debris flying in all directions. Professor Sandy lets out a sharp gasp as she crumples to the ground. Her eye patch falls away, revealing her demonic eyes. Fakir stands over her, studying her intently, and wonders if that is the reason he could detect a faint demonic scent emanating from her. He demands to know where she acquired those eyes. Sandy begins to smile demonically, her body trembling as she reaches out toward him, confessing that he is the only one who can truly excite her. But she loses consciousness before she can finish her sentence. Fakir notes to himself that Professor Sandy is utterly insane. He picks up the headmaster's sword and recognizes it as the famed blade Orwell. Conjuring a portal, he reflects on the divine immortal ring, noting that he had planned to take it and leave the school within the next 6 months, never expecting to acquire it so soon. He also considers the current situation, admitting that he has never heard of anything like this occurring in the past, not even involving Professor Sandy. Something definitely feels off. Suddenly, his intuition spikes, alerting him to another presence. He turns his gaze toward Headmaster Winston's lifeless corpse. Then, without warning, the headmaster's eyes snap open, and the gaping hole in his chest begins to knit itself back together. In the fragments of memories, a small boy is seen crying. His parents possessed an enviable amount of wealth and were devoted followers of Loon. When a great famine descended upon the village, they, unable to bear witnessing the villagers starve, opened the gates to their estate and storehouses, sharing their food and wealth freely, asking for nothing in return, following God's commandments. However, the mob that swarmed in like flies soon transformed from starving, pitiful faces into merciless rioters. They trampled, looted, and destroyed everything in sight, taking everything from the young headmaster Winston. Among the countless rioters, the boy fainted and miraculously survived. But the scene that greeted him upon waking was nothing short of hell. Deny God, deny humans, deny yourself. The voices inside his head commanded him to reject 3 things. That was his first denial. He no longer trusted God, the deep scars in his heart having shattered his faith. Time passed as he guarded himself from the world, building walls around his frozen heart. However, the reason his cold heart began to thaw was thanks to a beautiful girl who approached him without hesitation, despite his icy demeanor. Through the time he spent with her, he was able to rediscover faith and human love once more. Just as the scars in his heart began to heal, an unprecedented revolt known as the 47 coup d'etat broke out across the empire. During the process of capturing the rebels, he was gravely injured, to the point where he could barely stand. But still, he remained resilient, for he had a wife who showed him kindness. Time continued to pass, and he eventually became the academy headmaster. To heal the after effects of his chronic illness during the upcoming sabbatical year, he and his wife embarked on a recuperative journey. During that time, a violent storm arose, leaving their ship on the verge of sinking. Even after casting cargo overboard to lighten the load, the vessel continued to descend. Meanwhile, he was of little help due to his sickness and injuries, and the people on board began to stare at him with growing resentment. In that moment, he gazed at his wife and saw her begging him with her eyes to pretend not to know her. He could not even resist and was thrown overboard. As the water engulfed him, he heard the voice once more. "Deny God, deny humans, deny yourself." That was his second denial. He believed he had died, but when he awakened, he found himself lying on a sandbank, his injuries fully healed. He could not simply give up on his life. Even though he had been abandoned by God and betrayed by his wife, there was still someone out there who was waiting. No, someone he was waiting for. Although she was a descendant of a war criminal who had led the coup, Winston personally stepped forward to save, shielding her from execution and taking her in as his own. As a man who had no children of his own, he looked after her and taught her as though she were his own flesh and blood, following God's teachings and his wife's belief that humans were inherently kind. But at what point did things go wrong? He asked himself. Was he the problem for believing that God's love existed and that humans could be kind? Deny God, deny humans, deny yourself. The voice suggested that this was the third instance. The moment he realized this was the third time, he denied himself. Headmaster Winston rose to his feet, his gaze fixed on Vikir as a dark aura flickered around him like a violent storm. Vikir could detect the scent emanating from him. It was the unmistakable smell of a demon, incomparable to the faint trace left by Sandy's left eye. A foul and sickening stench. Vikir wondered if this was an elite corpse, noting that something else seemed to be mixed into the scent as well. It bore a resemblance to Camus's odor when she was bound to Sayre, the eighth corpse, which meant Winston's soul had likely been fused with a demon. However, Vikir realized he was unable to properly identify demons or recognize their true nature. His mind raced as something clearly did not add up. Amidst the chaos, Dolores came rushing to Vikir, panting heavily. She remarked that it had been a while and asked if he had come all the way there because of the explosion. But her mind also turned with confusion. She could not understand how the Night Hound had arrived so quickly. Her gaze then fell upon Headmaster Winston, and she recalled seeing Professor Sandy pierce through his heart. Vikir explained that it appeared Winston had returned after contracting with a demon. Dolores was shocked by the revelation. Vikir further disclosed that Winston's soul was likely still present, coexisting alongside the demon within him. The headmaster then raised his hand, employing gravity magic to lift Professor Sandy off the ground. He began to tighten his fist, and an invisible hand, mimicking his movements, wrapped itself around Sandy's neck, choking her. Professor Sandy struggled for air, but Winston growled, demanding to know how she could do this to him. Her body trembled as he raised her higher into the air. He had raised her with love, treasured and protected her as though she were his own. So why did she... His words trailed off as Sandy cut him off, telling him to stop talking shit. The headmaster was left speechless by her bold statement. Sandy continued, her voice strained as she gasped for air, asking if he truly believed people would see him differently just because he had adopted her. She had faced continuous contempt and mistreatment since childhood, profanity and discrimination at every turn, and it would have been better if she had died alongside her family when they fell. She told him to stop saying such disgusting things, to think that a trash who was involved with a demon was talking about faith, human affection, and peace. It was enough to make her sick, she croaked. Her words struck a chord within Headmaster Winston. Suddenly, the ground began to shake violently, as though an earthquake had erupted. The shadowy figure behind Winston began to expand, revealing crazed eyes and jagged teeth. "Is that what a human is?" the demon questioned. It then leaped out of the headmaster's shadow, transforming into its true form. Dolores and Vikir stood frozen, their eyes wide with shock as the demon towered behind Professor Winston. Its eyes glowing crimson, it declared that Winston was the kind of person who deserved to be denied 3 times. This was the 5th elite corpse, Amdusias, with a risk rating of S+. Its site of discovery was deep inside the gate of destruction, within the snake's womb. The 5th corpse was the natural enemy of humanity, invulnerable and immortal, one of the 10 disasters. In the dead tongue of the former imperial state of sorcery, the name Belial meant worthless, and it shall take the lives of firstborns that year. Prophet Lune, her face veiled in shadow beneath a hood of white, walks toward her execution in heavy chains, resolute despite what awaits her. 3 of her devoted followers collapse into the snow at her feet, sobbing and reaching for her in desperation. She stops before them, gently invoking the old scripture. When the shepherd is struck, the sheep will scatter. She tells them plainly that they too will abandon her before the end. Among them is a young disciple, the boy fated to become the future pope. Overcome with emotion, he clutches his chest and swears that no matter what the others do, he will never leave her side. Lune meets his vow with quiet sorrow, prophesying that before the rooster crows at dawn, he will deny knowing her 3 times over. The execution follows swiftly and brutally. Lune is bound to a wooden cross in the snow and run through repeatedly with spears, her death witnessed by rows of silent, armored guards. The young disciple can only watch, paralyzed by grief and horror as he stares up at her broken body. Then the guards turn on him. 2 executioners cross their spears before his face, demanding to know if he is connected to the condemned woman. Gripped by terror, he denies her at once, turning away and curling into himself. But a servant girl steps forward, recognizing him as the boy who once begged the prophet for guidance and ran her errands. He denies it again, more forcefully, insisting he has no idea who she is. More guards close in, pointing to his accent as proof of his ties to her followers. Broken by fear, he sinks to his knees in the snow, weeping and cursing as he shouts his 3rd and final denial beneath the prophet's lifeless body. At that exact moment, a rooster crows, sealing Lune's prophecy in blood and betrayal. Back in the present, within the ruined stadium of Colosseo Academy, Dolores and Vikir, still concealed beneath his Nighthound disguise, find themselves face to face with a colossal and terrifying demon. This is the very entity responsible for the Academy's destruction and the Colosseo tragedy in the original timeline. Its name is Amdusias, the 5th of the 10 elite demon kings, an immortal calamity regarded as humanity's natural enemy. Amdusias fixes its glowing red eye on Vikir, catching the unmistakable scent of demon blood clinging to him. Pointing a clawed finger in his direction, the demon asks whether he is the Nighthound who slaughtered its kin, remarking with dark amusement at finding him here, watching from behind his mask. Vikir realizes in that instant that the foul scent he had sensed on Headmaster Winston was, in fact, this very demon's presence all along. Drawing on memories of his past life, he recalls that Amdusias was never meant to appear for another 6 months, a deviation that signals just how far events have strayed from the timeline he once knew. There is no time to dwell on the shifting timeline. Vikir's sword ignites with crimson energy as he steps between Dolores and the demon, resolved to strike before Amdusias can unleash its full power. His glowing red eye locks onto the enemy, and he clearly makes out the link between Headmaster Winston and Amdusias' souls, a bond mirroring what he once witnessed between Camus and Serre. With that, he lunges forward, blade blazing, unleashing the Baskerville family's 7th technique. But just as he closes in on Winston, Vikir stops short, sensing an incoming attack. The demon remarks coldly that had this been its past self, the strike would have already killed it. Caught off guard, Vikir has no time to react before Amdusias drives a punch forward, releasing a thick beam of blue energy that hurls him backward. The blow lands hard, and Vikir coughs up blood, stunned by the sheer force behind it, before slamming into a stone wall and collapsing into the rubble. Amdusias advances, declaring that Vikir's strength is no longer sufficient to challenge it. Baring its sharp teeth in a grin, the demon taunts that whatever power once threatened it belongs to the past, and it no longer holds any effect. Eager to end the fight, Amdusias raises its fist for a final, crushing blow. The strike detonates in a massive explosion, sending dust and debris scattering through the ruined stadium. Despite the danger, Vikir's expression stays calm behind his mask as he braces for the impact. Just before the blow lands, a red magical barrier etched with glowing runes flares to life before him, and a strange voice cuts through the chaos. It is Decaravia. The living pendant asks if it has arrived too late. Vikir answers evenly that it came just in time. Amdusias recognizes the barrier at once, identifying it as Decaravia, the seventh corpse, and sneers, asking what happened to its power and why it now behaves like an obedient dog serving humans. Decaravia meets its gaze with its single eye, remarking that Amdusias is as sharp-tongued as ever. Yet something troubles Decaravia. As blue energy churns around the demon, it asks uneasily why Amdusias feels different than before, wondering aloud whether it senses the power of the Marquis of Disharmony emanating from somewhere close by. Amid the wreckage, Dolores looks on in shock at the destruction surrounding her. She calls out quietly for Vikir, using his alias, Servan, only to realize she has been separated from him in the chaos. Her fear quickly gives way to resolve. Refusing to simply stand by, she decides she must find some way to help. Her gaze shifts to Headmaster Winston, fixing on the glowing purple demon heart embedded within his chest. Dolores steps toward him, telling Winston plainly that he is no longer the professor she once knew. She demands to know what lies the demon fed him, her fist clenching as she declares that demons are the embodiment of evil, the very opposite of justice. Closing the distance, she pleads with him, insisting that demons exist only to bring about humanity's ruin, and begs him to break the contract before it is too late, clinging to the hope that some fragment of his humanity still remains. Winston glances back at her, revealing one eye burning red and the other still human. His response is cold. His world, he tells her, was already a wasteland long before the demon ever found him. With Amdusias looming behind him, he explains that it was the only one who ever understood his suffering, the only one who guided him through it. Meeting her stare with his mismatched eyes, he declares that concepts like evil demons and righteous humans mean nothing to him anymore. Gripping his chest, he argues that the true opposite of justice is not evil, but another form of justice entirely. His red eye burns brighter as he proclaims that his justice demands humanity's downfall. He addresses her formally as Dolores Lune Quo-Vadis, invoking her family's history, naming her a descendant of the disciple who survived by denying God 3 times. Dolores says nothing. Winston presses further, asking why someone born of that bloodline would choose to defend humanity at all, knowing full well how low humans can fall. Still, she shouts back, insisting that even in the depths of despair, humans retain the power to choose a better path. Winston scoffs at the notion, questioning the worth of such blind conviction. He gestures toward the unconscious Professor Sandy, asking whether Dolores believes the woman who devastated the academy and turned on him had also chosen the best path. Dolores has no answer. Turning away, Winston continues his cruel demonstration, summoning dark magic to hoist a mutilated man into the air, his body pierced through with jagged blue crystals. Winston asks Dolores what she makes of this criminal, then slams him down, shattering the stone floor beneath him. Dolores recoils in horror, hand flying to her mouth. Winston asks again whether she still believes this man is capable of choosing the right path. As the dust clears, the broken figure struggles to rise to his knees, brown-haired, goateed, his body encrusted with crystal. Dolores stares at his face and freezes, stammering in disbelief as she recognizes the monster kneeling before her, her own father. Decaravia's singular eye contracts to a razor slit, its ancient composure fracturing as unease sharpens into dread. Its voice trembles when it demands how Amdusias channels the unmistakable energy signature of the Marquis of Discord, a presence it swears it could never mistake. Vikir goes rigid at the name, blood draining from beneath his mask as he wonders whether the demon truly commands such devastating power. Above them, the air curdles and folds inward until a massive face of blue energy coalesces overhead, vast and ancient, staring down at the ruin below. Decaravia confirms its worst fears. This is Andras, leader of the 9 demon lords, the first corpse. Amdusias regards them with open contempt, explaining that Vikir's meddling, the ruined plans, the slaughtered kin, forced the remaining demon kings to swallow centuries of pride. A fist, crackling with blue lightning, clenches at its side as it admits bitterly that they begged Andras to lend his strength. Even a fragment, Amdusias boasts, makes it overwhelming beyond measure. It warns Vikir, grinning wide enough to show every jagged tooth, that their roles have reversed. The hunter has become the hunted. The clash that follows tears the arena apart. Red aura collides with blue lightning and shockwaves that shatter stone, the ground splitting beneath blows too fast for the eye to follow. Amdusias's borrowed speed and strength overwhelm Vikir instantly, a brutal punch to the ribs, followed by a kick that leaves no room to recover. The demon leaps skyward, gathering power into a single devastating point, and slams down with enough force to carve a crater into the earth. Vikir uses the rising smoke as cover, slipping behind the demon to unleash a desperate crimson slash, but the gap between them has grown too vast. Amdusias dodges without effort, reappears at his back, mocks the slowness of a blade that once made kings tremble, then charges the crystal jutting from its skull and blasts him through the stone floor below. Standing over the wreckage, it admits the borrowed power won't last forever, but sneers that its own strength alone is sufficient to end a mere swordmaster. Coughing blood into the rubble, Vikir hears Decaravia ask, voice tight with panic, why he hasn't called on the shield. He answers simply that he's saving it, for when he truly needs it. Decaravia calls him a fool, and Vikir does not argue. Internally, he admits the truth. He can barely keep pace with Amdusias, and this crushing violence is only a sliver of the demon's true strength. Amdusias sneers down at his resilience, likening him to a cockroach that refuses to die. Undeterred, Vikir counters that the demon is drunk on power that was never its own, reminding it of the weakness stitched into its existence. If Winston dies, if the contract breaks, Amdusias ceases to exist. He asks why the demon severed itself from its contractor mid-battle, whether arrogance has clouded its judgment. Amdusias answers without hesitation. It trusts Decaravia to remain loyal to its master above all else. And it confesses that it left Winston unguarded, not out of faith in his humanity, but out of faith in the depth of his hatred for the world, a hatred it nurtured for years. Winston genuinely desires humanity's ruin, and that desire, Amdusias explains, is a truer bond than any leash. The glowing purple heart in Winston's chest is no mere ornament. It is the tree of falling, the key required to unleash the demon's full power. Vikir stares, stunned, at the implications. Amdusias grins, wide and cruel, admitting it orchestrated all of this for one reason alone. It did not wish to miss the spectacle of humanity tearing itself apart. Elsewhere, beneath a sky choked with dust, Dolores stands frozen as a voice calls her name. She stares at the crystal-encrusted man before her, hardly daring to ask if he is truly her father. As she reaches toward his ruined face, his eyes widen, not with recognition, but with terror. He scrambles backward across broken stone, screaming, begging not to be struck. Winston watches, cold and unmoved. Caught between pity and horror, Dolores speaks his name softly. Humbert. What follows spills out like a dam breaking. He confesses to laundering fortunes through criminals and cults to bury his rivals. He confesses to manipulating the Quo Vadis family by impersonating the Pope himself. And then, with a smile that curdles into something monstrous, he confesses to staying silent while children vanished from the orphanage under his watch, sobbing and laughing in the same breath, screaming his guilt as crystals along his body crackle and spark. Winston looms over the wreckage, asking Dolores whether she heard her father's confession in full. The demon heart pulses beneath his coat as he presses her further. How many lives were lost to her father's greed? He warns her that the sacrifices are far from finished. As Humbert writhes and screams, Winston explains that, like the other criminals Sandy once altered, her father is about to explode. Across the stadium, Bianca, Sancho, and Piggy break into a desperate run, while one of the Baskerville triplets sweeps Pomeranian into his arms and flees. The coming blast threatens to erase everything within it. Winston lays a hand over his pulsing heart and declares this destruction will serve his justice. As Humbert's screams tear through the air, Winston asks one final cruel question. Can Dolores still forgive a monster like her father? She bows her head, silent for a moment. Then she answers, one word, a denial. Winston assumes it to be natural rejection, but his expression shifts as she continues, her voice steady, her body wreathed in golden light. She tells him that though she cannot know what pain shaped him, she still believes he has the chance to choose a better path. Clasping her hands in prayer, she unleashes a dome of holy light around herself and her father, screaming for Winston to run before the explosion consumes them. As the holy light spreads outward in waves of gold and radiance, a flicker of blue lightning cuts through Winston's vision, a memory surging from the depths of his buried past. He sees a desperate man, his father, shouting at him to run, while desperately holding back the encroaching townspeople with nothing but his own body. He sees a blonde woman, his wife, weeping. Disoriented and shaken, Winston stumbles backward, his carefully constructed composure crumbling as he stares at Dolores in stunned silence. Her name falls from his lips, quiet and uncertain, as though he isn't sure why he said it or what it means to him anymore. Inside the barrier, Dolores stands firm over her father as crystals along his back crack and surge with light. Humbert, broken past reason, begs her to let him explode, just to end the suffering. She refuses. She urges him to endure, for everyone beyond the Golden Dome. But the mana inside him has reached its limit. With one final scream, blinding beams of blue light erupt from his fracturing body. Tears well in Dolores' eyes, as she whispers one last denial, the light rising to swallow her. In the distance, both the Night Hound and Amdusias turn toward the surge, watching as a massive explosion of white and blue devours Dolores and her father, threatening to erase them entirely. Just as the blast reaches its peak, a figure steps calmly into the light, dark shoes catching the glow, a walking cane tapping once against shattered stone. Startled, Dolores looks up into the brightness at the sudden arrival. If you're enjoying this series, please give the video a like. It really helps others discover it. And if you'd like to see more, consider subscribing to the channel. Want the next chapter? Comment next chapter below.